Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. She didn't even notice the car keys were gone, or the laptop, or that my passport wasn't in the drawer anymore. But what she did notice, the silence. I didn't leave a letter. No angry voicemail. No dramatic suitcase scene. Just one empty chair at breakfast and my toothbrush missing. She thought I was sulking. Again, she even laughed about it. Emmett's probably pouting in the garage, she joked to her sister over speakerphone. He gets weird like this when I don't baby him. I heard it all. From the car. Engine off. Breathing shallow. Listening like a ghost outside the window of the house I bought. For her. And that's when I knew. I had to vanish right. Not loudly. Not bitterly. But completely. See, people assume men like me fall apart in dramatic ways. They picture broken mirrors, slashed tires, messy crying fits. But what they don't picture, what Pamela didn't picture, is quiet men unraveling so slowly that by the time they're gone, they're already a memory. I had a plan. A sloppy, desperate plan, but a plan nonetheless. I'd prepped for weeks. Bit by bit. Cash withdrawals no bigger than $20. Selling off tools on Facebook Marketplace. Transferring files from the shared laptop to a flash drive labeled taxes. Nobody suspects the man who smiles while loading the dishwasher. But here's the part no one warned me about. When you disappear, really disappear, the world doesn't stay still. It keeps spinning without you. I thought I'd feel free. Lighter. Instead, I started getting letters. Not love notes. Not pleas for forgiveness. Legal threats. My name was showing up on documents I never signed. Properties I didn't own. Credit cards I'd never applied for. Pamela's name wasn't anywhere. But mine? It was everywhere. And somehow, despite me erasing myself from the grid, someone had dug me up. By name. By number. By debt. So yeah, she joked I was sulking. But she had no idea the kind of storm I was about to uncover from the shadows. I thought the hard part would be walking away. Turns out, that was the easiest thing I've ever done. It's what came after, the staying gone, that nearly broke me. You'd be surprised how much of your life is stitched into the little things. I couldn't use my usual email, couldn't log into my bank without leaving a digital footprint. Couldn't even use my pharmacy account. Yes, even refilling my blood pressure meds felt like a risk. I left behind everything. Phone, job, even my name in some places. But the moment the first legal envelope showed up at the UPS drop box I'd rented under a false LLC, I knew Pamela wasn't just sitting at home missing me. No, she'd gone to work. Aggressively. Strategically. And worse, she wasn't doing it alone. The documents were perfectly crafted, airtight. Claims that I'd left her in a financial disaster, abandoned debts, froze our accounts illegally, and even siphoned money from her private business. Funny thing is, I didn't even know she had a private business. But that didn't stop her from listing my name on every forged document. And if you've never seen your own forged signature staring back at you with the threat of jail time attached to it, consider yourself lucky. I spent 2 weeks sleeping in a motel that smelled like bleach and mold, eating microwave meals, and mapping every connection I still had left in the world. There weren't many. Turns out, when you disappear without fanfare, people assume you deserve to be gone. Only one person responded when I reached out. My cousin Nolan, who lived 6 states over and owed me from a stupid thing I took the blame for when we were teens. He had an empty trailer behind his shop. No questions, no conditions. That trailer became my new home. Cold, quiet, anonymous. And then, 3 days into my trailer exile, I got an email from a burner address with no name attached. The subject line just said, "She's not working alone." And inside, there was a single photo. Pamela, smiling, arm in arm with a man I recognized immediately. My former boss. The same one who quietly fired me 2 months before I vanished. My skin went cold. Suddenly, this wasn't just a bitter ex-wife trying to ruin my life. This was something else entirely. And it was only just beginning. I stared at that photo for almost an hour, like it might blink or dissolve if I looked hard enough. Pamela, leaning into him like they were high school sweethearts. His arm wrapped around her waist like it belonged there. The timestamp on the image was from 3 weeks before I vanished. That meant while I was still lying next to her at night, wondering why her body felt colder than the sheets, she was playing house with my ex-boss behind my back. His name was Kent Rulon, regional director at the firm I worked at for nearly 9 years. He was the kind of guy who shook hands too hard and called every woman sweetheart, no matter how many times they told him not to. 2 months before I left, he called me into his office, said they were restructuring. And just like that, I was out. No warnings. No explanations. I even thanked him for the opportunity like an idiot. Now, suddenly, it all made sense. Pamela didn't just know Kent. She was with him. And somehow, I had become the sacrificial pawn in whatever twisted scheme they were running. I replayed every odd thing from the past year. The financial inconsistencies, the way she suddenly knew terms she used to ask me about, the locked drawers, the new handbag she claimed she won from a work contest. I thought I was just losing my wife. No, I was being erased. Set up. I couldn't prove anything yet, but my gut was screaming louder than ever. I sent a reply to the burner address, asking who they were. No response. Hours passed. Then a second message arrived. No subject, just coordinates. A remote location 30 minutes outside the nearest town. Along with a short line of text, you'll find the backup there. Hurry. I had no idea what that meant, but I printed the message, deleted the email, and left the trailer before the sun was up. Every mile I drove, my chest tightened. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It felt like I was being dragged into something bigger, something dangerous. I parked in a dirt clearing near the coordinates, surrounded by tall pine trees and silence thick enough to choke on. There was no house, no cabin, just a half-buried metal box behind a broken fence post. Inside it, a flash drive, a set of photos, and a typed note that said, "You were never supposed to find this." My hands started shaking. Pamela didn't just cheat. She didn't just lie. She had turned my entire life into a blueprint, and I was never meant to survive it. I locked the trailer door behind me as soon as I got back. It was past midnight, and my hands hadn't stopped shaking since I dug up that box. The flash drive was smaller than my thumb, yet it felt like it weighed 100 pounds in my pocket. I plugged it into the ancient laptop Nolan let me borrow, half expecting it to be empty or corrupted. But the second the folder opened, I knew I had stumbled into something far beyond infidelity or fraud. There were dozens of files, audio recordings, screenshots of email exchanges, legal documents with forged dates, and phony witnesses. And in one video, I watched Kent, clear as day, explaining how the exit plan would work. "He's too soft," Kent said casually, sitting across from Pamela in what looked like a hotel room. "He'll fold. Let him disappear on his own. If he doesn't, we'll nudge it." Pamela didn't argue. She laughed. That same laugh she used when I once burned dinner or forgot her birthday. "He's already halfway gone. It's adorable how he thinks sulking is some kind of resistance," she said, twirling a pen. "We'll drain the rest once he's out of the way." I paused the video. The walls closed in. Everything I doubted about myself, every moment I thought I was being dramatic, paranoid, weak, was exactly what they'd counted on. They knew I'd disappear. They planned for it. And every signature, every transaction, every lie she told was perfectly placed like puzzle pieces. I looked through the documents again. There were property transfers in my name, loans taken out under my ID, fake texts pasted into email threads suggesting I'd threatened her, even a false restraining order she'd never filed but had ready, just in case. She'd built a paper version of me, a version who was angry, unstable, financially reckless, and she kept the real me around just long enough to make it believable. I sat there for hours, reading through the pieces of my own destruction, and the more I read, the more a dark realization crept in. This wasn't just about money. This was about erasure. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted me untraceable, unredeemable, and completely replaceable. The final file was a draft legal motion, filed under Pamela's LLC, with Kent as a listed partner, seeking full access to the remaining accounts I had locked before disappearing. The motion claimed I was mentally unfit, possibly suicidal, and dangerous. I closed the laptop. My chest burned. This wasn't betrayal. This was premeditated. And if I didn't act fast, they'd finish the story they were already telling the world. One where I'd never existed in the first place. I spent the next day pacing the trailer like a caged animal, the walls closing in tighter each time I replayed that video in my head. Pamela's voice, calm and detached, chilled me more than the idea of losing everything. It wasn't even her affair that cut deepest, it was how calculated it all was. How she had reduced our entire marriage into a set of exploitable weaknesses. I was just a template, a necessary placeholder until she didn't need me anymore. And now, apparently, I didn't even legally exist. I tried to log into my old personal bank account, one I hadn't touched since I left. Password rejected. Then the security questions failed. When I tried to reset access through customer service, the rep informed me my account had been closed per customer request, with funds transferred to a trust bearing my name, but controlled by someone else. I hung up mid-sentence. Even my social security number, when I checked online for recent activity, came back flagged for multiple identity inconsistencies. They hadn't just replaced me on paper. They had begun erasing every trace of me across every system that mattered. I wasn't just missing, I was being rewritten. That's when the call came. A restricted number, no voicemail. Then a second, an hour later. I answered on instinct. Mr. Clyde, a woman's voice said, professional but laced with condescension. This is a courtesy call to remind you of the deposition scheduled for Monday. You've been formally served via your attorney. We expect your full cooperation. I said nothing. I had no attorney, no knowledge of a deposition. But the line went dead before I could even respond. My mouth felt dry. They were pushing the next move, forcing my hand, drawing me out of hiding like a deer into a trap. But they hadn't counted on one thing. I wasn't alone anymore. That night, I called Nolan into the trailer. I told him everything, showed him the files, the recordings, the emails. He didn't say much at first, just sat there, jaw clenched, face pale. Then he stood up, opened the rusty cabinet under the sink, and pulled out a burner phone and a sealed envelope. I didn't think I'd ever need this again, he muttered. Inside the envelope were 2 IDs, a list of contact names, and a number scribbled beside the words, "If they come for you, call this first." I didn't ask questions. I just nodded. Because Nolan had once told me he'd done things in his 20s that nearly landed him in prison, and now I understood just how serious that had been. I wasn't sure what kind of mess Pamela and Kent had dragged me into, but it was bigger than fraud, bigger than betrayal. And for the first time in months, I wasn't just running. I was preparing to strike back. 3 days later, I checked into a dusty roadside motel under the name Eli Harlow, using one of the fake IDs Nolan handed me. The woman behind the front desk didn't even ask for a deposit, just grunted and slid me the key. Room 107. Smelled like mildew and old cigarettes. Perfect. I needed to be somewhere no one would look, somewhere off the books while I figured out my next move. I had the flash drive backed up in 3 places now, one hidden in the trailer, one sent by mail to an old friend who owed me, and one inside the lining of the duffel bag I never let out of my sight. I knew Pamela and Kent would be tightening the noose. The deposition was just a formality. What they really wanted was my silence, or better yet, my surrender. But I wasn't playing the part anymore. I wasn't their quiet, spineless puppet. I was something else now. And even if I was scared out of my mind, fear wasn't my enemy anymore. It was my fuel. That night, just past midnight, I heard voices outside my motel door. 2 men, one of them laughing, but not casually, nervously, like he was trying to keep it light while watching for something. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. A black SUV was parked right in front of my room, engine still running. I killed the lights inside, my breath shallow, heart thudding so loud I swore they could hear it through the wall. "You sure this is the room?" one of them asked. "That's what she said," the other replied. "We knock, we wait. We don't force it unless we have to." He's already on thin ice. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. They stood there for a minute, then walked off toward the office. I grabbed my bag and slipped out through the back window, barefoot and freezing, but alive. I didn't go back. I didn't check out. I left the flash drive behind, one of the decoys. If they searched, let them find what I wanted them to find. I crashed in Nolan's truck that night, hidden in the woods by his shop, curled into myself with a crowbar tucked beside me like a safety blanket. In the morning, Nolan handed me a prepaid phone and told me the contact I needed had agreed to meet. No names, just a cafe on the edge of a forgotten town, 1 hour north. He's ex-Fed, Nolan said. He's helped people disappear before. But more importantly, he hates being lied to. I had no clue what I was walking into, but it didn't matter. The pieces were moving now. Pamela and Kent thought they were finishing their script. What they didn't know was I'd picked up the pen, and I had a rewrite in mind. The cafe Nolan sent me to was the kind of place that didn't show up on GPS. Half the letters on the sign were burned out, and the inside smelled like black coffee, grease, and something long dead in the vents. The only people inside were a farmer-looking guy hunched over a newspaper and a middle-aged man sitting in the back booth, stirring tea without drinking it. That was him. Had to be. He made no motion when I slid into the seat across from him. Didn't even look up. Just kept stirring. When he finally spoke, it was so low I almost missed it. Nolan says you've been made into a ghost. I didn't respond right away. What do you say to something like that? I just nodded. He finally looked up. His eyes were sharp in that way people who've seen too much get. I read the drive. Not all of it. Just enough to know your wife and your former employer are either criminal geniuses or incredibly stupid. I leaned in. You believe it? He smirked like I'd just asked if water was wet. Son, you're not the first man I've seen rewritten on paper. Bureaucracies love narratives. If enough systems say you're broke, dangerous, unstable, people stop asking questions. Judges stop listening. Your story doesn't need to be true. It just needs to be convenient. He slid a file folder across the table. This is how we make their version of you fall apart. Slowly, legally, and loud enough for people to finally look twice. I opened the folder. Inside were documents connecting Kent's name to 3 other shell businesses, 2 of which had active fraud investigations already opened. One had ties to Pamela's LLC. This wasn't just a personal scam. It was a pattern, a repeatable con. Find someone soft. Find someone invisible. Strip them for parts and bury the rest. What do you want from me? I asked. He leaned forward, and for the first time, his voice dropped into something colder. Testify. Quietly. With backup. I'll hand-deliver the evidence to the right people under the radar. But I need your voice on record. It's not enough to prove you're innocent. We have to prove they're predators. Otherwise, they'll do it again. Maybe to someone who doesn't crawl back. I hesitated. Every instinct I had wanted to run. But then I remembered that hotel room footage, the way Pamela had smiled when talking about dismantling my life like it was a game. No, I wasn't crawling anymore. Fine, I said. Tell me where and when. He stood, slid on a faded cap, and left without another word. I stayed behind, staring at the folder, the truth of my life finally printed in someone else's handwriting. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to become the story they never wanted anyone to hear. The recording happened in the back room of a bait shop 3 counties over. No windows, 1 dusty light bulb, and a recorder placed between us on the table. I told everything. Names, dates, how Pamela manipulated the finances, how Kent fired me under false pretenses, how they fabricated mental health records and pre-filled legal motions. Every pause I took, the man across from me just nodded. No interruptions. No reassurances. Just listening, methodically collecting the threads of my unraveling and weaving them into something solid. Something that could stand up in court. When it was done, he didn't offer a handshake or congratulations. Just said, go home. We'll call you. But I had no home. Not anymore. The trailer? Compromised. The motel? Burned. My name? Still a whispered threat in the mouths of people who once claimed to love me. So I started over. A different town, a job fixing generators under a different name, a tiny apartment with creaky floors and nobody knocking on the door. I lived quietly, but not in fear anymore. I had truth now. That was mine. Weeks passed before the fallout began. I watched it unfold online like someone watching a slow train wreck from the safety of a hill. Pamela's company dissolved overnight. Kent's name was dragged into court filings with enough weight to crack him wide open. Their assets froze. Their smiles disappeared from social media. And then, one morning, I got an email from a firm I didn't recognize, forwarded from the man at the cafe. Inside were legal documents for the reinstatement of my original identity. My name, cleared. My accounts, returned. Not everything came back. Some things were too far gone. But what mattered was this. I wasn't a ghost anymore. I existed again. Not the man they erased. Not the man they mocked. But the man who watched from the shadows and made it through. I'm still quiet. Still a little broken. But I get up every morning, drink bitter coffee from a chipped mug, and stare out at the sunrise knowing they didn't win. I did. And not through rage or revenge, but through something harder. Endurance. So what about you? What moment in this story hit you the hardest? Was it the motel encounter, the hidden flash drive, or the moment Pamela laughed like it was all a joke? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story left a mark on you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more stories right here on Reddit Confessions.